But let me tell you, I brought up in the course of that story this example of how it is that we have free will and that we can shift timelines and why nothing is inevitable. I was sitting in Lynn Buchanan's living room a few years back. You know, he was the chief trainer for the entire CIA remote viewing program. He's the guy who trained all the other guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say Joe McMoneagle also saw his own death, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. That's right. So Lynn was involved with Joe McMoneagle in Project Stargate, and he was there through the changing of hands of the program from the CIA to the DoD. And he was the guy responsible for training the other ace remote viewers. And he told me that, I believe it was sometime after he had already retired, and he was doing private corporate consulting. So companies, they still come to him. Companies come to him and ask him to do remote viewing for them. And so this is what he was doing. But the government actually came back to him sometime in the early 2000s. I forget whether it was 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. And they said to him, we want you to remote view the next 9/11. We want to know what the next terrorist attack against the United States on that scale is going to be.
When is this, by the way?
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yeah. I forget the exact year.
So probably right after 9/11.
Yeah, exactly. They came to him and they said, look, we understand you're retired, but, you know, do us a favor and remote view the next 9/11 for us. And he did. He put a team together and they remote viewed this event. And they said, Islamic terrorists were going to approach the United States in boats that were full of biological agents, that it was going to be a horrendous biowarfare attack on the southeastern seaboard of the United States. So like in an area between, I think, like the Carolinas and like Georgia, like that area, right? And he said they were going to come in on these boats, and once they got to the coast, they were going to release this biological contagion, and it would be far worse than 9/11. Tens and tens of thousands of people would die. And he was able to give them the date down to the day of when this was going to happen. So here's what happens. On that day, the Coast Guard goes out and they intercepted these ships. These ships were coming to the United States, and they did have these biological agents on them, and they were intercepted, and these people were rounded up.
Is this recorded?
I could understand why, if this happened, it would be classified. But this is what he told me, that he got confirmation that he had been correct, and that based on the intelligence he provided, the terrorists were intercepted.
And do you know, when was this day?
I don't think he told me the date.
Do you know what year?
I don't remember. He did tell me the year, but it was in the early 2000s, and this is what he told. And so here's my point, is that he saw this event take place vividly. It's a clear precognition of the future. So clear, he was able to volunteer the date, but he changed the timeline. So this is, empirical evidence for the ontological fact that we have free will or some degree of intentionality and agency. That nothing is fated.
How so?
How so? In the sense that, look, if, for example, you're me and you see your own death, it doesn't necessarily have to happen that way. You can change the course of events that leads to that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because they were able to intercept them. That's to you.
And this has happened many times. Look, the remote viewers used precognitive remote viewing routinely in order to engage in hostage rescue attempts. When, like, for example, American hostages were taken prisoner in Lebanon in the 1980s and so forth. They would routinely try to see the future movement of hostages and things like that so they could send people to intercept them and retrieve them at certain places. Right.